Thank you for listening to Games by Design, our ongoing quest to distill principles of good game design and to find out what makes a good game. We play video games, share our experiences, and discuss what is cool and uncool, or uncool. We play what we want, when we want, and we leave the news and reviews to everyone else. I'm Aaron Bone, and I'm your host for this episode, and I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, Zach Dunlap.
Hey!
And Nick Dunlap.
Me!
And today is our very special episode where we are highlighting one specific game, and that game today is Hades. Hades is made by Supergiant Games. It had an early access in 2018, and then a full release in 2020. It's this action, roguelite adventure with all kinds of other things thrown in there. We had a good time with it. Excited to talk about it. Before we get into our in-depth discussion about these different game design principles we noticed in this game, just want everyone to share their journey with the game. This is a game where you can have a really varied experience from the next person. There's a lot of different ways you could play the game, different ways the story can unfold. And so I want to get into that a little bit. So Nick Dunlap, why don't you share a little bit about your experience and your journey with Hades?
I can do that. I'm going to start at the very beginning. Well, at my very beginning. So when the game was announced in, I think it was December of 2018, at the Game Awards in 2018.
Right, yeah.
And was launched that same day for early access. So I watched that live and I thought, that's kind of interesting. I'd been aware of Supergiant's work. But never played any of their games. The YouTube documentary series No Clip, which I have watched for years and is a favorite of mine, launched a documentary series with Supergiant following the development of the game, and it was kind of an ongoing thing. It's called Hades Developing Hell, and it's available on YouTube. And I watched pretty much.
It's excellent.
Yeah, it's super informative, fascinating, and I watch pretty much everything that No Clip puts out, so I watched that too. I wasn't particularly interested in the game, or really any of Supergiant's work, but I love seeing the behind-the-scenes stuff of how games are made. So I watched the series, and it lasted over the course of the game's development, these past 2 years. Mm-hmm. So when, Aaron, you recommended that we play it, I was totally down to try it. I wasn't necessarily expecting to love it, but having learned so much about its development and having been following that, I felt a sort of emotional attachment to it. I know so much about this game. I really should play it at some point. Yeah. So I won't say that I was immediately hooked. I often feel a little wary of mythological adaptations. And I've never played a game with a lot of the elements of Hades were a little foreign to me, like the kind of visual novel conversation aesthetic and just a bunch of other things that I just hadn't experienced before. So it took a little bit of getting used to. But the gameplay is so darn fun, and that is what really grabbed me. I love the way it feels to play. It's so juicy. It's responsive. There's so much visceral energy to it, and it was really easy for me to get lost in a flow state. The challenge was really compelling to me. And interestingly, I started to love everything else about the game, too, as time went on. The characters and the visual aesthetic grew on me, and the story became important to me. And there's this weird feeling where, I liked the game because it was fun, but now having got to know it, I like every element of the game because it's part of the game. I feel like I got to know Hades, and now I like everything about it because it's Hades. And I don't feel like it's perfect, but its imperfections are what make it the game that is Hades, which is a game that I really enjoy and I like a lot. And this is, all me in the midst of it. I haven't finished the game, and perhaps some of this will change once I have finished the entire experience, but I really like it. I like it a lot, and I've enjoyed my experience with it so far.
That's great. So, since there's so many different ways you could play, and with the gameplay and the characters, I'm just curious, did you have a favorite build or a favorite weapon way to get through the runs?
I liked chasing whatever the RNG threw at me, honestly. Like, I just
Yeah.
liked varying it. I think, like, the first time I got through Elysium, I did it with a bow, which is funny because I don't like the bow very much. But, like, yeah, you know, it's just, like, I liked doing things with items that weren't necessarily my favorites. I enjoyed the challenge of trying something new kind of constantly. So I would kind of just chase whatever bonuses there were. That's kind of been most of my experience with it.
I like it. What about you, Zach?
All right. Well, I've already kind of mentioned before that I just wasn't really into it at first. I hadn't watched a documentary, and I'd actually played Transistor a little bit, which is another Supergiant game.
Yeah, it's your second one.
Yeah, and I didn't like it, so I just thought, no thanks, I'm out. And so we sit down to play Hades, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll play Hades, but I didn't really expect to love it. And I didn't really love it, for the first few sessions. I thought it was okay. Like, I was like, okay, this is juicy, it feels good or whatever, but there's nothing hooking me,
Mm-hmm.
And then something just kind of clicked for me within a few episodes, a few sessions into the game, and I think it was 4 or 5 hours into the game. I was like, oh, okay, right on. This is a lot of fun. Hit a stride and really enjoyed it. So after all that, I've played, I think 37, 40 something, around between 37 and 40 escape attempts at this point. But I've only ever made it out once.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. I'm gonna keep playing it. But yeah, I got, the thing is, for me, I think I've been thinking about why I got so stuck on it, why I did eventually get hooked, and I think I did end up, I think it was the writing. I got invested in Zagreus's quest,
Mm-hmm.
and in all of the characters, the characters back in the House of Hades, your character, the gods of Olympus and everything like that. I just started liking them a lot. Even though they're a little bit larger than life, and, because they're Greek characters. And,
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really what, kept my interest. If this game had less compelling characters, the gameplay itself probably wouldn't hold me, even though it is moment to moment juicy.
Mm-hmm.
And some other things that I really love. I love the crunchy Mediterranean rock music. It's so good. It's so good. And I love also it's a really wonderful adaptation of Greek mythology, actually. Having grown up in the Western world, you learn about Greek mythology and things like that, and then going to and dropping out of a liberal arts college, you learn about Greek mythology and stuff there, and it was cool to see that, oh wow, they included that. That's really cool. I didn't, and they did their research, and it was gratifying to be playing through this world and getting these nods to details and nuances of Greek mythology. That was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. It is incredibly intricate at times with how
I know
mythos it pulls on.
Yeah, they did their homework on this one, and it's impressive, and I love it too, because I'm a big fan of Greek mythology, so it's just kind of fun to be steeped in it. Mm-hmm. And it's a fun original character too. I like I'm pretty sure Zagreus is original.
I think he's actually a character.
Is he a real myth?
I think he is.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, he's a bit more obscure. I think he's only in certain versions of mythology, but he's
that's super cool.
I mean, clearly his characterization is authored.
Yeah.
But
the fact that he exists, that's cool. So yeah, that was my thing, is the gameplay is good, it's good gameplay, but by itself,
wouldn't have kept you there.
It wouldn't have kept me there. No,
Yeah.
I needed the narrative and the story and the writing and everything. Even though I am enjoying the gameplay a lot, but if it weren't for the story and if I hadn't got invested in the characters and in everything, I wouldn't be able to be as excited about it as I am.
Makes a lot of sense.
As for favored builds and stuff like that, my favorite weapon that I used for most of it was MacLeod, that twin fists.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
I loved it. But then when I started finally spending Titan blood on stuff, I got this Varatha upgrade for the spear, you know?
Yeah.
It turned it into the aspect of Achilles, and after that was the one that got me through that finally. Like, when I finally finished for the first time, it was because I had the spear, you know, and then I had upgraded it and done the whole thing. So there's just the boons that I really, really like tend to be, like, whenever Ares pops up, I'm like, oh yeah, they're gonna turn me into a machine of death.
Doom.
Yeah, oh, that Doom is so good.
Yeah.
The blade riffs are really good too.
Mm-hmm.
You can like
the dashing one. That's probably my favorite.
Which one?
Where you dash and leave a blade rift. That's probably my favorite.
That's a cool one. Yeah. I like the cast blade rift.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one where I upgraded it, so it was like this massive vortex that just sucked people. It's great. But yeah, I don't really love the bow either. I like being more mobile, and I feel like I have to stop to attack things all the time when I'm using that one, and I haven't really used the sword in an age.
I know, me neither.
or the adamant rail either. You know,
Really?
I've like once or twice on that one, but I once again I prefer being mobile.
I really like the rail, actually.
Yeah. Well, the rail hits so hard.
It does.
It's so
I think I got out once. My proudest run was getting out without using a single use of Death Defiance, and that was with the rail.
Wow, that's
I
nice.
felt very proud of myself.
Nice.
That's great.
I also
I've
healed a
not
lot,
done
you know.
that.
No, me neither. Yeah, man, yeah. And then,
That's great. Well, I'm glad that you stuck with it past your initial distaste for the game. And
yeah, me too. It's kind of like it's kind of like we were talking about in our last episode, actually, where it's like, you know, it's the same effect when you start watching a TV show, and it's like, and it's not really good for the first couple episodes, but then like, you know, it picks up and becomes compelling or whatever.
yeah.
Or maybe it's not any better after the first couple episodes. You just have gotten sucked into it at this point, you know.
Yeah. It could be overwhelming or confusing at first, or frustrating because you die and go back to the beginning. And yeah, for sure. Well, my experience for the game, and before I get into that, I realized as we've been talking, when I talked about the game, I didn't really say what the game was. So the story is, you play as Zagreus, who is the son of Hades. Basically, he's fed up with his dad and fed up with living in the underworld, and he wants to escape. And that progression of escaping, and there's some specific story reasons of exactly why he wants to do that, and kind of how you learn that. But the escape is this different rooms of enemies that you fight and conquer, getting through the underworld, and each time you go through, you kind of progress and grow, get new weapons, get new abilities. And that's just kind of the story and the progression of the game. But my experience with it, honestly, I kind of bought it on a bit of a whim. I saw the trailer. I missed it when it came out in early access, and when it was, you know, earlier on the PC. I saw it for the Switch trailer when it was coming out on the Nintendo Switch. And I was like, oh, that game looks pretty cool. And I just heard a lot of positive word of mouth about it and some buzz. And then I saw, and it wasn't released yet, I saw that Bastion was on the Switch for like $2. And I was like, oh, that's the same people that did Hades. And I've heard that this at least has good music, which I like. So I'll give Bastion a try. And Bastion does have really good music. And basically all the games, Supergiant does excellent with the music.
They do, yeah.
But a thing that really drew me in Bastion's it's simpler than Hades. Basically, the combat's kind of similar. You have different weapons fighting rows of enemies, but you're just kind of progressing from level to level linearly through the end of the game. But what really got me about Bastion, kind of similar to what you were saying with Hades, Zach, was the writing of Bastion, in that you have this narrator that kind of responds to what you do. And so I'm playing Bastion, and near the beginning of the game, I fall off the edge of the cliff. The world's kind of suspended on these platforms that you play. And I just fell off, and the narrator was like explaining the stories, like, and the kid woke up and was ready to seize his destiny, and then proceeded to jump off the cliff. Like, the way that it reacted to what I was doing, I thought was really satisfying. And I really appreciate that about Hades, and I'm completely blown away by how much dialogue. I have played this game for maybe about 70, 80 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Very little repeated dialogue. and all of it's voiced and all of it's responded. There was this moment I had the other day where I was just, you buy these little temporary upgrades through your runs, and I had one of them on me, and it was like, oh, you have this, and whatever next boon you find, what next temporary upgrade that improves your power and your attack, this will make it better. And then I had that and walked into one of the boss fights, and they reacted to the fact that I had this temporary upgrade on me.
That's so cool.
It was because it related to the story, related to the mythology, because these things, they're called something, related to mythology. It's like, the price of Midas, or something like that, Yarn of Ariadne, and because of who the characters were I was going up against, they related. It's like, oh, that's the game knew that I had that.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
So kind of working backwards, this later on in the game, that's really just what keeps drawing me back. It's like I gotta see what all is in here, because it keeps expanding and there's more and more, and your interactions with the characters and your little side quests that kind of pop up that just continues to expand the lore. But my initial impression of the game, I don't think I had the dislike for it that Zach had, but it took me a little bit to get into it. I was like, oh, I don't know if I like roguelites. I tried Dead Cells a little bit, and I didn't like that you just die and go back to the beginning and have to battle the bosses all over again, and battle the enemies all over again. But again, with the writing, each time you fight the boss, there's something different about it. It's a different exchange. They react to the weapon that you have. They have different moveset. It's like a different variation of the boss. It's something it's continually changing. And I think one of the coolest things about Hades that sets it apart and kind of the roguelite thing is that because a lot of the story progression happens outside of your runs, basically when you die, you go back to the house of Hades and you can interact with a lot of different characters. There were certain times where I wanted to die so I could go back and, engage with this character and continue that thread, or, sell these resources that I got so I could get this thing, so I could upgrade my weapon, or so that I could unlock this other thing. There's so much. If a run wasn't going too well, it's like, oh, well, that's okay. It's okay if I die, because then I can go back and talk to all my, favorite people, and this. I can, turn in my fish and, get this and do that. Fishing in a roguelike game is amazing. Like,
I was really surprised with
that. When I found out you could get
okay.
a fishing pole, it's like, wow, that's cool. Anyway, I'm all over the place, but I really come to enjoy this game. When I started out, unlike you guys, I was all about the bow. I love to keep my distance. I love to just snipe them out. There's like this one aspect that can just send a volley of arrows at one guy. Loved it. And so that, along with Athena's boons, which is all about defense, basically I wasn't very aggressive when I started playing the game.
Yeah.
But my first successful run were with the fists.
Yeah.
And that's something I love about this game too, is you kind of, it pushes you out of your comfort zone and encourages you to explore the different weapons and play styles, and kind of what you're saying, just kind of go with the flow of what it gives you, the random, boons that you receive. I found that when I had set in my mind, oh, I want to play this way and I want to use this weapon this way to get through it, I'd get like nothing that went along with that, and it would be a bad run. But when you're just like, oh, okay, it's encouraging me to use the fists, what the heck, I don't really like them, I haven't used them too much, try it out, and then that's your successful run.
Win.
Like, it's
yeah.
It's kind of crazy. But anyway, that's my experience. I've been addicted to the game basically the past month. It's been hard to put down. Just want to get more and more. I've probably had about 18 successful runs. I've seen the quote unquote end of the game, which is not really the end of the game. Like once the credits roll, there's still a lot. There's more dialogue to unlock. There's more story. There's more things going on. And
There's
honestly,
so much.
I usually don't care about achievements or things in games. This is honestly a game where I was like, I could 100% this thing, or I could at least get all the main achievements and get it done. So I'm looking forward to continuing with it. Oh, cool. Well, that's different journeys, and I love how we all have different ways that we've experienced it and ways to play. And so to get into now the specifics about what this game does with its design and some interesting things there, let's dive into our discussion. Zach, if you want to start that off with your topic, and we can go from there.
Absolutely. So like I said, the main pull for me was the writing on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, what was this game? I'm sorry, there was this story enhanced because it was told in a video game, do you think? And then instead of being like a movie or a TV show or a book or something, like did the fact that it was a video game enhance the story at all? And how do you think that happened? Or didn't happen?
Well, good question. I like the story structure. That being the kind of repeated, like the pushes and the failure, and then like taking time to learn some things, and then to kind of make another attempt. It's kind of got this ebb and flow to it that's really nice, and that's something I feel. I mean, like you can have ebb and flow and other things, but you can't have that through like. The systems of the game are what facilitate that. You go, you fight, you die, you learn some stuff. You go, you fight, you die, you learn some stuff. And I really enjoyed that loop. I thought that was really cool. And it's unique. It's not something that I've experienced elsewhere. So, and not something I felt like I could have experienced in a different medium necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't really like to watch a TV show where it was the same thing again. I mean, like Groundhog Day, maybe. I don't know. That's not really like I don't know. I think the repetition and the story structure, the way it interacts with the gameplay, I really like that.
And again, so much of the story of Hades, so much of the character relationships and their interaction are based on your actions as a player. Like, it's not just you get to a certain point. How many dies, and then you see a cut scene and it just plays out, the story, and then you get back into the gameplay. It's all on, the characters that you choose to talk with, at what points you talk to them, talking to them after talking to this other person, after doing this one thing, and then talking to them again, and then, giving them a gift and then talking to them again. Like it's, kind of almost that same kind of random way that the gameplay plays out, the story does as well, but that it also has this really nice linear progression to it. I think it would be too simple or too. I don't know if it was just in a movie or it was just linear. Like I don't know, because so much of it is what you make of it and how the characters that you've chosen to interact with, and how many times it took you to finally get out of the underworld, I think has a lot to how the story lands and fits. Like, I don't know, if with how a lot of the story goes, if you played the game and just got out on your first try, I feel like a lot of it would maybe be kind of weakened. And maybe that's something that, kind of works against it in the game, that because it's so dependent on the player, if you are just really good at the game or choose not to interact with certain things, you could miss a lot potentially. And I know there were some moments too where the random dialogue was sometimes a little frustrating, where it's like, oh, I could talk to this character now and progress more in this relationship or this thing, or they could tell me more about this, and instead, because I don't know, you recently did a new weapon or something, they talk about that. And you're like, oh, okay, we can talk about how I used the spear for the first time, but like, I really wanted you to tell me about this. But then there's something charming about that as well. So there's this really nice ebb and flow with the story, with the narrative and the player, that I just don't think you would not get that kind of interaction in another medium.
It's so reactive, and I love that. It remembers things. It's constantly building on what you're taking. It's a back and forth. the game's giving you certain things and you're responding to those things, and then the game's taking your responses and feeding those back into the story. And so like, and so it's so much a back and forth. It's so much it's kind of this interdependent story. Like it couldn't exist. It could not exist without the player. Like the story's not going to play out. Like you need the player, and so I feel like it's taking really good advantage of the medium, because the game, games are where there's a player, and if your story needs a player, I mean, you're clearly playing to your medium's strengths in at least some way. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think also just the fact that it has so much story with the type of game that it is, I think really makes it unique as well. Because if you play a lot of other roguelikes or even just kind of action beat 'em up type games, there's usually not a whole lot of story, or a lot of character interaction. But like the fact that, this is Greek mythology and you're kind of a god and immortal and can't really die, it just like plays into it. It's like, oh, you keep dying again, and that's now part of the game, and we can work with that, and that builds a story. And in roguelike you're trying to get to this certain endpoint, and it's like, well, you're trying to escape from Hades, it's so the way that they've pieced that all together so that the story really reinforces and works with the gameplay and vice versa, I think really enhances both aspects of that as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, I really like the story in this one. It's really good. And it's funny too, because it's not like, I don't think it's like I've read better books, and I've watched better movies, when it comes to like the plot and the characters and things like that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't get to be a part of those stories, But in Hades and in a lot of really good narrative video games and stuff like that, like I feel like I am a part of the story, and so like when the characters react, they're reacting to what I've done, because I did make a choice, and then the choice that I made affects them, whether that's and in this game you have a pretty limited number of choices that can affect the story, you can change how each run goes, and you can change that's basically, I think, about it. What you can do is like, you can determine what kind of play style you're going from run to run or whatever, but like you're going to be the same basic arc, the same basic plot is going to be what happens throughout the whole thing. Like you're still going to be trying to get out of the underworld, and you're still going to be having the same, you don't even get to choose what you say to people, like it just, but you choose to give them a gift or something like that. So yeah, that was interesting. I was going to ask something else, if you guys don't mind, because I think that that's my question about the story.
For sure. Yeah.
And unless you guys have any other thoughts, there was something else I wanted to chat about.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. Okay.
I had to check my brain.
Check the brain. Yeah. Okay.
Do that old brain check.
Yeah.
The other question I had was, what did you guys think of okay, so here's how I kind of saw it, was that I got through my first run and I beat the boss, and up to that point that was the whole goal. The whole goal of the game was to get to Hades, beat Hades, and then move out of the underworld and go do the thing. But the and then I did it, and after I did it, it resets you, and it's like, okay, well, go back to the beginning again and do it again, because you've got what you came for, but it's kind of the thing for me, it felt like a little bit of a moving target kind of a thing. It's like, and because like from the beginning of the game, from session 1, I knew the goal was to get out. For whatever reason, and then you learn more about why and what and whatever as you play. But like but the goal stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get out, the game's like, cool, you did it. Now get out again. You know, and so like you reached your goal, but you're not done yet, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to know if you guys found that, what your reaction was to that kind of, I'm calling it a moving target kind of a thing, but yeah, so moving target kind of thing at the end there.
Yeah.
After your first run.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really like it because, again, it reinforces the gameplay. There's so many things you can do in the game, and so many, you know, different weapon aspects you can unlock, and like just so many things. You will probably get to the end of the run before you do all those things, and because the story keeps continuing and keeps working with that repetitive gameplay, it keeps you engaged. You know, to finish up those things while you're still in the story. I know when we talked about Celeste, we talked about how it was kind of frustrating how all the bonus stuff kind of existed outside the story, but it still made you do it again in order to get there.
Yeah.
I really like with Hades, it's just a continuing thing. And, you know, spoilers, I've seen the credits. That's not the end of the game. You still, you know, can continue to do it. But I think they did that so that, I mean, one, yeah, they want people to keep playing their game, but two, there's so much in this game to discover and to figure out, and, you know, character relationships to deepen, and different mechanics to unlock, and different ways that you can find it to play the game, that I think if you just had a linear story just within your run, you know, you wouldn't want to go back and discover it. Or, you know, some people would. In fact, I knew somebody who was playing Hades, and he finished his first run. He was like, "Yeah, I think I'm good. I don't think I need to do, you know, the 9 other times to, you know, get the true ending or whatever." And I didn't understand that when I got the first. It's like, oh, I gotta continue. I gotta, you know, keep doing it. And there's something about the way of Hades, like, I think inherent in these types of action games, like, you want to interact with anything that you can. It's like, oh, I can talk to this character. I'm going to talk to him. I can interact with this thing. I'm going to interact with it every time. I can... At least that was my feeling playing the game. Like, I wanted as much depth and interaction as the game could give me. And so that the game continues to respond to me, even when I've quote-unquote beaten the game, I just think it's fantastic. And that I actually have no idea how long I have to keep playing it to get, like, the full wrap-up. But I think it's probably in the type of time frame that you will be able to experience everything the game has to offer within that time. So I think it's great.
Yeah, you kind of hitting on something that I thought was really cool, which was that I realized I was getting close to the end of the game, and I realized also, or end of the run, my first run, and I realized that there was, like, so much stuff that I hadn't done yet, and so many storylines and character moments that I just hadn't had a chance to engage with yet.
Yeah.
And what was cool about and so it was funny because I was, like, kind of dreading the end of it. I was, like, almost wondering if I should start handicapping myself so that I could, you know, spend more time with it and still have a, you know, an ending or whatever. You know, and I didn't, because that wasn't going to be fun. And I knew that also, that, like, it wasn't over once you beat the big boss. And so, but I was relieved, actually, which was funny because I had been working towards this goal my whole time. And then when the goal is moved and it's like, whoops, no, you didn't get it, actually, I was like, oh, thank goodness I didn't get my goal.
Yeah.
You know, and that is weird to me. that was so much of a relief instead of something that was frustrating.
I have some thoughts on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like so much of Hades is about the intrinsic joy of the pursuit, like, and about how fun it is to make these attempts. And so when it gives you another goal, when it switches your goal, and the means to accomplish that goal is still the same, like, I mean, your goal changes, sure, like, you know, okay, I don't have to, I'm still trying to get out. My reasons are a little different, but I still do the same thing. I still fight through hell to get out. Like, it oh man, what was I going with this? It knows the game designers know that what is fun about Hades, that a lot of what is fun about Hades, like there's the story, but a lot of what is fun is the way it repeats, and the cycle and trying to get out, and the variety, and there's so much more than just that goal.
Yeah.
And so when the goal becomes kind of the journey more than the goal just kind of gives you a reason to keep going on the journey. Like I'm okay with that. And like when it first happened, I was a little weirded out by it. But I too, I mean, like oh, that's a little narratively unsatisfying. But I was relieved that I got to keep playing the game.
Yeah.
That I got to keep experiencing this story. That the story isn't over yet. And that I get to keep playing with what is so fun about it. I keep getting to interact with characters and to try out new fun toys and just all sorts of great stuff.
Well, and think of how it would be like. It would go against everything else in the game if there was an end to your run. It's like you got out, no reason to go back in, but then it's like, oh, boot up Hades again. Oh, and we're back. Like the story is continually the entire game about your actions and interactions and development with these characters, and then if it was just you got out and then never mind. Yeah, it wouldn't work. So I think it's really ingenious how they made that loop kind of work in narrative. And I had a similar experience getting to the quote unquote, true ending of the game. I was like, oh, I mean, okay, that's fine. But like, it seemed like that there were all these other things going on. It's kind of weird that they didn't address any of that. And then you get back, it's like, oh, we're not done. Okay. And it was kind of a similar thing. Awesome. It's like, well, I was hoping to finish this game tonight. I guess I'll keep playing. Okay.
It's funny. Yeah. It's what I think Hades does so incredibly well. That many most video games struggle with. And I think this is one of the great achievements of this game is that most video games, especially narrative games. When you die, it kind of like backpedals the story a little bit and like decanonizes what just happened.
Yeah.
Like you have a reset point, you go back, whatever.
Yeah.
And so like you have the death thing, or it's in a game where it's like, you get to the final encounter or whatever, and it says, okay, make sure you do everything you want to do before you go into this final encounter, because this is the final encounter. And then, you beat the final encounter, and then you can always reload right before the final encounter, but then it's like weird because you've already done it, but in the game that you're now playing, you're still playing, and like all that stuff is yet undone in the game, even though you've already done it. And so it's weird, you know. And so with Hades, and with some other really clever tricks, I mean, I think The Witcher actually, to bring up that game again, like actually handles its ending really well, But anyway, but Hades particularly, throughout the whole thing, consistently, everything is canon. Everything that happens is canon. And so that means that, every choice you make has an enduring effect or consequence on the rest of the game. It's not like you erase it and go back and revise what happened, in any way. It all feels like it flows together and fits together really, really naturally and organically.
No, I love when you die and, you come out into the House of Hades and you got Hypno standing there and he's like, oh, guess you died. Oh, you got killed by this thing. Oh, man, they're tough. Make sure you don't do that next time. It reacts like not only that you died, but the specific way that you died. Or, it's like, wow, you made it all the way to Elysium. That's cool. You see the Minotaur? Give me his autograph. Like,
yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I love it, yeah. Because everything's canon. Everything fits. And you don't have the weird, like, dissonant, like, jarring thing of, like, oh, yeah, well, the last time you tried this, that wasn't actually real. Like, this is the real one because you succeeded,
Yeah. I mean, like, I hate retcons in fiction. Pretty much all. And if your game is built on, like, constant retcons. It's like, oh wait, but wait. I mean, it's like the Prince of Persia. Wait. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Which is like a funny way of handling it, but still, it kind of has the same problem.
Yeah, and it's so unsatisfying. But when the game can recognize everything you're putting into it,
right,
and not just some of it. I mean, we talked about this before a little bit. Like the game is accepting everything you're offering.
Yeah,
it's anything you want to do is canon. I love that. I love it when games do that.
Yeah, me too. This one handles it really, really well too. Mm-hmm. And it handles it really well in a narrative kind of a game, which is unusual because, like, we've seen this in strategy games. Sure, strategy games all the time. Like, you make a decision, you live with it, whatever.
Yeah.
But and some strategy games manage to bungle that too. But like in a narrative game, like it's really unusual to have, everything like that. I don't think there's anything in Hades that I did that didn't ultimately, canonically happen. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing. Because every death is canon, every failure, every success is also canon. And even when you get to the end of the game, you keep playing and the end of the game behind you is still canon,
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
I know we've talked about this with Skyrim before, but I found it really unsatisfying to get to the end of the story of Skyrim and then nobody, you keep playing the game because you get your side quests, but nobody really talks about how you just saved the world or, how you had all these great interactions with these characters and kind of these final moments. It's like, oh, that was great. And then it's just like, oh, no, that didn't happen or it didn't really matter or no, this guy's still mean to you or that,
Yeah.
Jarl doesn't care. Like it's...
Yeah.
So yeah,
let me guess. Someone stole your sweet roll. No, actually, I just saved the world. I went to the afterlife and killed a world-devouring dragon. Thank you very much.
Anyway, there will be more Skyrim discussion in the near future. Let's talk about that.
Coming soon.
To keep on Hades, Zach, was that everything that you wanted to?
Yeah, that's everything I've got for now. Thank you.
Excellent, great. So, Nick, what would you like to talk about?
I would like to talk about Hades.
Well, that's great. That's why we're here.
Yeah, I know. I think I picked the right episode.
What a coincidence.
Yeah. So, Hades is a game full of features. It has a fully voice-acted cast of oodles of characters. It has oodles of weapons and oodles of variations of those weapons. And it has oodles of items, oodles of upgrades, oodles of bad guys, oodles of places, and oodles of ways in which those things combine.
Lots of
so
oodles.
you might call it a game of oodles. So my question is thus: what experiences, good or bad, did you have with the way Hades handles its oodles? Or more specifically, what benefits did you find in the game having a vast variety of systems? And perhaps what disadvantages were there?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Well, an advantage that we've already touched on a little bit is, being able to have that gameplay variety with having a lot of different weapons, that can just shake up the way that you play. And the game incentivizing you to use a different weapon, even if you don't, like that weapon. It was something when I played Bastion, there was a lot of different weapons in Bastion, but there was not really any reason to use a different weapon once you found one that worked for you, It's like, oh, I really like this sniper. I'm not going back.
Yeah.
But Hades, I think because of the way, because of the RNG, because of, the procedural nature of it, you can't perfectly plan a run, like how you might want to. And so I think the game encouraging you to do something different works really well. For a while, I didn't like the adamant rail at all. The gun of the game, basically. I was like, oh, I don't want to play a shooter. Just get me in there. But and I struggled. It was the last weapon. I had cleared a run with every other weapon except for the rail. But then the game gave me, these variety. It gave me a way to use it. I unlocked a new aspect of it. That allowed me to have more ammo. And then I got this upgrade that meant I didn't need to reload, and then I got this other upgrade that made it a shotgun, and I was like, this thing is amazing now. This rapid fire infinite shotgun.
Yeah, so since it had so many options, it kept you engaged, whereas otherwise you might have grown bored with
it kept me engaged, and then also reintroduced me to aspects that I thought I didn't like and didn't appreciate and was just kind of ignoring, and then made me want to continue further with that. After I did that run, it's like, oh, okay, maybe I can do more with this, or maybe there's this other weapon I don't like that I could try out more. And continually, it would find some way to get me engaged in that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. I also really like. Well, your question was like how it handled its massive content.
Yeah.
And how that was good or whatever.
Yeah, or not
good. Yeah. Well, I think something that helps a lot is that I guess this is just like buckets and buckets of testing that got this to be so good and so perfect, but like they just know when to add new things, and I like the pacts of punishment, for example. Like I got through the whole game. I'd played it like 35 runs or whatever, and I'd never seen this or even heard of this thing before. And then I finally have a successful run, get back home, and then it's like, okay, well, we know that you've successfully made a run now, the game says, and so here's a new element. Now that you've mastered the game well enough to beat it, here's another wrench in the works, here's another option or opportunity to make it a different experience. And it's like, that was just so well timed, so good.
Yeah.
And I think also, so I guess they just dole it out at just a great rate, But I think also, kind of going back to something that we talk about frequently, one of our tentative game design principles that we're playing with now is that we like it when the game delivers you what you ask for and nothing more than that, And the thing is, like, the game does, like whether it's a tutorial or gameplay or whatever, like when it comes to information or systems or something like that, like you only have to engage with what you want to engage with. And the thing is, like, this game does present you with a huge breadth of options, I kind of like with Crusader Kings, which is the one which was the game that we were playing when we came up with this idea in the first place.
Yeah.
Is that there's like a billion things you could do. And even without the pacts of punishment, there's so many things you can do that you just, don't always do. And the thing is, like, you could just do the same weapon over and over again, or you could play with any of the 5 or 6 weapons that there are. There's like 6.
Yeah, you got the 3 regular and the 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there's
more. Sword, spear, shield, bow, fist, gun.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and then there's like, I mean, like, for a really long time, for several runs in the beginning, I never used the cast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But it was there. I could have used it if I wanted to. I just didn't want to. I was focused on the other stuff.
Yeah.
And then there was also, and then after I started using the cast for a really long time, I didn't ever take any boons that added a call because I was still getting used to all that other stuff.
Yeah, same.
And then finally, I would get to the call. And then finally, and so, like, there were options available to me throughout the thing, but at no point did it require me to use any one particular thing. And I think that's why I was okay with how many things there were, is because I didn't have to do them.
Yeah.
Ever. I only ever had to do I only ever did what I wanted to do or felt ready to do,
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. You're right.
I think the visual design of the game also does a lot to help manage all of the different systems and all the different variety of things. I think there's just a really smart shorthand that it has for everything that you go into these different rooms and there's a symbol on the door and it tells you what's behind the door, and when you first start out the game it's like, what's that? I guess we'll find out. And then the more you play, the more you recognize the symbols, the more you remember where things are at, the more you remember where the NPCs are and what they give you, and then you are also then, as you said, Zach, it introduces different things, and as it introduces them, it gives you a clear way to remember where it's at and what it does and how it is, and you're not just constantly going through menus, but you're still progressing through the game while you're managing your systems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the visual language of the game, I think, really reinforces it. Really, really helps keep it from becoming too overwhelming or too convoluted because there are so many systems in this game. And keeps it keeps it grounded. And usually, like, I'm the type of person that tends to be overwhelmed when there's so many systems or when there's so much management of things and there's so much. I think it's amazing how, you're constantly making these decisions of upgrades you want and benefits that you want and directions you want to go and things you want to do and ways you want to play. But the game trains you to do it instantly, that you're not stuck in menus, that you're not constantly, at least, I don't know, I never spend too much time meticulously going through the boon list, at least later on in the game. It's just like, ooh, yes, that one, that does this, I remember what it does, I want it. And I
like that.
I think that's excellent.
It's clear, it's written efficiently, and it's got that awesome system where every time you hover over a boon, it'll like lists all of it. It's got like the highlighted words, and it explains what every one of them is.
Tooltips.
It is. It's awesome.
It also lets you know if you haven't done it before, because you got your whole faded list that... Again,
I
seems
love
like
that too.
Pointless achievements, but then you realize, oh no, this is a way for me to engage with all these different aspects of the game that I wouldn't know about. So
and here's I have two more thoughts about why I think this game handles so much stuff so well, and it's connected to what we've just been talking about. Number one, when you're given a choice for a boon or a Daedalus hammer upgrade or a pomegranate or something like that, like you only have like what, 3?
Yeah,
3 options. And that's not how many options there are in the game. There's like, any one god has, like what, 15, 20 boons or something like that you can choose. Then there's the duo boons where they interact and there's like a combo.
Different rarities and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And so it only ever gives you like a few things to choose from at a time. Because if I hit an Aphrodite boon, for example, and then I had the entire catalog of her boons that are in the game and I had to choose one of those, I would be like, okay, whoa. No. But it just says, okay, well, and then it has a little bit of like the RNG thing where it just picks 3 random ones and then you have to choose one of those things. And you only have to choose from 3, which is a fun blend of like having agency, but also having to make the most of what is currently available to you, which you don't always have control over.
Yeah.
I mean, it keeps you from breaking the game and becoming super overpowered. And
it does that too, yeah. Even though I feel really overpowered sometimes.
When you do get those crazy synergies, it feels great.
It does, yeah. So that's one thing, is that like it doesn't ever give you too many things to choose from at a time, and I like that. The other thing I think that helps this game does really well to help you like manage the extreme breadth of content is that it helps you by helping you make a choice. So it gives you 3 options, and then it helps you make a choice by tempting you with each of them in a different way. And it kind of just keeps in mind what your goals might be, because like your goals might be, well, I really want to fill out the list of fated prophecies or whatever, or I just want to like win this run or something, or whatever, or I have a synergy I'm building and I want to so the cool thing is that it like Aaron said, like it gives you the little like fated prophecy indicator if you haven't done that yet. So if your goal is right now, I'm just trying to this run isn't really a super serious one. I'm not really trying to win. I'm just gathering stuff to take back home and get benefits back there. Then you just take the Fated Prophecy one, or whichever of the Fated Prophecy ones is most appealing to you. Yeah. And then, if it's and then if you have like a certain synergy that you're going for, a certain build that you're working towards, and then you see one that would go really, really well with it, like you're like, okay, easy choice, I want that one. Yeah. So, and it never like makes these choices for you. No. But what happens is that it entices you towards all of these choices. And so like, you're like, ooh, that one would be really good. And that one would be really good for my current goal, And so I guess to kind of sum up what I think I'm talking about right now is it gives you enough information to make the choices and entices you towards the choices, so that you're like, you're just kind of emotionally drawn towards choices so that you can make them, and then without getting stuck in the analysis paralysis kind of a thing, So that's my thing. The 2 things are, it limits the number of things that you have available as a choice, and then it gives you information and then entices you towards choices and tempts you with all of them, so that
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. Well, I have a follow-up question now. Unless you guys have any more thoughts on that initial one.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, what's your question?
So, this is a little different. It's in the same vein. So we have talked a lot on this podcast in the past about games having a focused experience, like delivering a certain experience and not needing to cater to everybody.
Right.
So I want to know, in that vein, generally, do you think a game like Hades loses any of its potency or loses any of its potentially meaningful experience by having so much content? And it could yes, no, whatever. Like I just want to. Well, I want to talk this subject.
Here's my thought, and I've been thinking about this a lot too. And I think that we talk about. I think that some game designers actually talk about games this way a little bit, and some players talk about games this way. And they'll say like, okay, like the best like balance of option, the number of options or number of things or whatever that you should have is 12 or 20 or whatever. Like they'll kind of quantify it or whatever. But the thing is like, I don't think that's quite it. I think that what is important is that you have a focused experience, right? And so if your experience is, I want to be Mario and I want to jump on things, then like you can then
jump on things.
You design a game and just make sure that everything you do, you could have 5,000 interactions so long as all of these interactions are about jumping on things. In my mind, and they all make sense and they're not like confusing to the player. If you have 5,000 different options in a Mario game and it still works, and I think that's amazing. But like and it's kind of like with Crusader Kings 3 that we all played together, like that game has an incredible breadth of options for things that you can do. There's so many systems to engage with in that game, but I think that it works because it all is feeding into the experience of being a medieval era ruler. Like and it would feel like something was missing if you didn't have some of these things. Like how much of a medieval ruler can I be if I don't have arranged marriages,
or
I don't have to deal with vassals
warfare.
or taxes or warfare or something like that. It would be missing. Something would be missing if this huge breadth of options was not available to you. And in Hades, it's the same thing. And like the experience is, I'm gonna fight through hell and get out of it, and that's the game. Like that's the whole experience, Like even the fishing, which I thought, what the heck is fishing doing in this? Like it contributes to it because you fish, you get something, you take the thing back, you get, you trade it in, you get something that helps you in an upgrade. I don't think that's the strongest element or mechanic in the game. I actually think it's kind of bizarre that it's in the game. Because the experience of fishing just feels
a little jarring compared to everything else.
Yeah, because the experience of that game is fight through hell and stuff like that, and that's not what you're doing when you're fishing, so it's a little weird.
I see.
But
I
almost
you
went
have
past
the
him.
extra element of kind of you can have upgrades for the House of Hades itself, and as the son of Hades, like Zacharias, like in the story, is like, oh, I guess I'll do some of these things. And I think like you're getting fish for the chef, so that he can make food. And
that's a really good point, actually.
I don't know.
That's a really good point because that game isn't just the experience of fighting through hell. You're right. It's the experience of being Zacharias. And Zacharias, that's what he does on a daily basis, is he fights his way out of Hades, But he also spends time with the household staff, and he also like collects things and does jobs and builds relationships with these people. So that's what the experience is that you're playing as this character, and that's what that character does. So you're right. I think that actually, makes a fair amount of sense.
Yeah.
I still think it's weird that it's fishing, but like it's fine. It's not a big deal, and I'm always excited when I find a fishing spot, so it's okay.
Yeah, same. Although sometimes I'm so caught up in the heat of I'm going to fight that I like leave a room, and then I realize there was a fishing spot because I'm not looking for them.
Yeah, no.
That's why they have that little ding to let you know.
Yeah, the ding.
I know the ding. Yeah, it was it's nice. I appreciate that.
The ding is nice.
They know you're not looking for them. Yeah. Sorry, Aaron, did you have any thoughts before I say something else?
No, yeah, like I think fishing is a trope in a lot of games, and maybe that's kind of why it's thrown in there as kind of a cheeky nudge at that. But I think it works with Zagreus' character. I think there's also this element of Agrius. Achilles gives you this codex and fills it out, and Zagreus is kind of curious, and he's never really left the realm of Hades too much before, left the house, and so as he's going to these new places, he's like, oh, there's these weird fish, these weird creatures that I'm learning about, and kind of, I don't know. But as a player, you're just like, ooh, there's an opportunity to get some more resources and
to get some more goodies,
maybe find a new fish, and I don't know. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
It's kind of change the pace from the hack and slash,
Well, yeah. I mean, like, yeah. I'm thinking about like. So a question then is, if it doesn't, how do I phrase this? So I guess we're saying fishing. Let's just. I'm enjoying looking at fishing because I think it illustrates some interesting principles. Fishing isn't like fighting your way out of hell, which might be like what you come to the game for.
Yeah.
And it's not quite like any of the other activities in the game, but we don't feel like it detracts from the experience necessarily. Is it because it feeds into the narrative, or because it just maybe the experience isn't quite what we thought it was?
I think it's... See, the thing is, I don't think it adds much for me, but it's so uninvasive that I don't care that much.
Okay.
That's for me. Like, it is nice to, like, I like it because I get to fill out more of the codex because of it.
Yeah.
I like it because when I bring it back to the chef, I like the chef.
Uh-huh.
But the actual act of fishing itself, and I guess I kind of like taking a little bit of a break from the hack and slash, but like, I don't know, it's not really that exciting to me in and of itself, or gratifying or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
But like, I mean, like, so it's fine. Like, for me, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. And I do it every time. Like, I never skip it.
Yeah.
Because I do want to get the fish, know. And so, I mean, I shouldn't really complain about the fishing. I'm not trying to complain about the fishing.
No, it's fine.
It's okay, and it works. It's okay. But going back to the whole, like, the experience being, fighting your way out of hell, I don't think that was actually accurate when I said that. I think that, like, the experience is being Zagreus.
Uh-huh.
And getting invested in why he wants to fight his way out of hell.
Yeah.
And then spending time with the household as the son of Hades, who is more popular than his dad with a lot of the denizens and things like that. And then, like, hanging out and talking and spending time with people. And, like... That it's the experience of the game isn't just fighting.
It's being
Zagreus, which includes fighting.
Which makes it makes a lot of sense.
That's the way I think I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, like, if it was a whole separate fishing minigame thing, where it's like adding more mechanics into it, but it's a simple button press and you get a fish, add to your codex. If you little quicker, you could get a rarer fish. But it's not too complicated or involved, so it doesn't slow it down too much.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's uninvasive enough that it doesn't bother me.
Yeah,
I just think it's odd.
Yeah,
but again, this isn't about the fishing thing. It's about your question was about the experience.
Well, yeah, and I think the fishing is handy because it's something that could seem a little out of place, but that, like, I think what we're figuring is that it's not actually it's not out of place necessarily. It's not taking away from the experience, and it's contributing to it in its own way.
Well, if I could just say one more thing, like, I think it's kind of fun that you have some things that are unexpected in the game. It's like, oh, I know I'm gonna unlock different kinds of weapons. I know we've established this character thing, but then it's like, I didn't know we had fishing in this game. That's cool. That's something new.
Yeah.
Like, that's... I don't know. I like it when games do things like that. It in a way that can still fit, but it just throws out a whole new idea or mechanic or function of the game that you just weren't planning on or didn't expect.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I don't actually have any problem with the fishing. I think it's great. I do
think it's a little odd. Yeah, and that's where I'm at, but that's all.
Yeah, and like, yeah, no, yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, I could go down many more rabbit holes, but I don't want to take the discussion too far away from Hades. So I think I might just wrap up there.
Okay.
And I think there's some things I'll want to revisit in the future. But thank you guys for discussing.
No, that's good. Yeah, thank you, Nick. And my topic actually, kind of springboard off of yours in that with so many different elements in the game, so many different systems. There's also a pretty intricate economy with the game and a lot of different resources and different ways that you trade them. Like you have the resource of darkness, which is basically your experience, and you can trade that in for permanent improvements. And then you have the oodles, the gold coins that you can buy different things to help you with your runs. You got gemstones help you fix up things back home. You got the Titan blood that helps you upgrade your weapons, and so on and so forth. There's so many different ways that work. And so what I want to talk about is how does that aspect, I think a lot about what this discussion of Hades, has kind of come about. And I think one of the strengths of the game is how everything works together and how everything reinforces the gameplay and reinforces the story. Let's talk about specifically with the economy, with the acquiring resources, trading resources, managing resources. How does that help interact with your experience of the game, with the gameplay? Just kind of a general, your experience with the economic systems in the game.
Well, I think it's really satisfying to grow in wealth. And that's one thing. And like to be able to get more and more things. This is kind of a messy thought. Try to make sense of it. Like at the beginning, I was chasing darkness at first because darkness was really valuable to me because it was how I was going to level up all my abilities and stuff like that. And I was chasing the chthonic keys because that's how I was going to unlock weapons. And then slowly those things became a little less relevant. And now I wanted, gems, or now I wanted diamonds. And so there was kind of, with so many currencies, there's kind of always another one to reach for.
Yeah.
And so, like, when the Pact of Punishment shows up and I realize I can get Titan blood on every run, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, this is really exciting.
Yeah.
And so, like, slowly you're accruing this wealth. And there's always something to reach for. Even when, and then you've also got the wretched broker where you can trade things
brilliant
around. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because it lets you kind of like, maybe I don't have any use for this. I really don't. Someday maybe I'll be able to use this ambrosia, but right now, so like, just handing stuff off and being able to trade it for things that are more valuable to you.
Yeah.
I think it lets you, refine your experience to something more you, and to focus where you want it. You don't have to engage with absolutely everything. And you can kind of choose where your attention is focused.
Yeah, I like that there's so many of them too. Yeah. What was your question exactly? How does the economic stuff play into the game experience?
Yeah, basically. It's I guess if I could, throw in some context, I really like what you were saying, Nick, about how kind of the way it's set up, even though there's like a lot of different resources to pay attention to, the way the game progresses, the way it sets up, you only really need to focus on a few at a time. Or it's like, the beginning of the game you focus more on this, or the end of the game you focus on this, but then things kind of open up, and now that darkness is actually valuable again, so you can go after that, and then you can trade your trade the gemstone in for keys, and trade the keys into nectar, and trade the nectar into diamonds, and trade that whole thing that the broker gives you. So your thoughts on kind of how that helped improve the experience of the game, or if there was anything that you thought was unbalanced, or if there was anything that you wanted to change with it.
Well, I think it's incredibly well balanced, especially. I don't know. Once again, it's one of those buckets of testing things where it's like somehow they just figured out a really, really good way to dole out currency and stuff of various kinds, and then like price things at just the right way, so that it's always like, I don't know. It's just it's extremely well balanced, I think. Is it representative of a real economy? No, of course not. But like, it's not that kind of game.
Yeah.
And I wish there were more of those, but that's just me. And that wouldn't fit here. I don't think that would fit here. That's not the focused experience that we're going for. But I like it. I like changing my approach on the run. Like, I got this pact of punishment recently that like is like it like increases Charon's like prices by like 20-40% or something like that.
Yeah.
Makes it really hard to shop at a shop. And so when I get that, like, I'm like, all right, forget it. I'm just gonna do without Charon this time.
Yeah.
I'll do without, because it's too much trouble to get all that money and not enough reward. I think that the best part of this economy in this game is the wretched broker. I think. Because he's kind of like the... without him, you wouldn't be able to do the whole exchange thing. Because, like, as Nick was saying, like, depending on at what point of the game and what your goal is at present, like, that changes what currency is the most valuable to you.
Yeah.
All of them have a different in-game mechanical effect. The gems are used to upgrade the house. The blood is used to upgrade your weapons. The darkness is used to upgrade yourself. The nectar is used to upgrade your relationships with people. And so they all have a mechanical effect, but then also if you don't need that mechanical effect right now, you can just trade it in for something that you need more. And I think that the Wretched Broker is fantastic for that reason.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Brilliant mechanic there.
I will say, for me, it kind of took me until I had a few successful runs of the game to really appreciate the system. Because starting out with your first run of every weapon, you get different resources with each boss that you beat. But once you've cleared that with a weapon, then you just get more darkness, which on one end is brilliant because it allows you to get some, permanent upgrades and experience early on in that game when you really need it. But on the other end, I'm seeing all these, weapon aspects or things I want to upgrade in my weapon. It's like, Titan blood is so scarce. Like, how the heck do I get Titan blood? And,
I was so scared to upgrade
and then
anything.
the Pact of Punishment. And it's like, okay, you now can clear a weapon at a certain heat. And then once you do that, all new resources again. And then you clear it at another heat, more resources. And I love that you have to clear it because it could have easily been, well, not easily, but it would have thrown it off if it was just add some heat, whether you clear it or not. Oh, you could still, get these, because then it'd be really easy to, just add a bunch of heat, but you can get through Tartarus, Titan blood, die, do it again, get some more Titan blood, die, do it. It would destabilize the market, so to speak. You'd be going to the Wretched Broker, with just cards of the stuff. And so I really like how that all plays into it. How now that's reinforced in the gameplay. Now you want to use a different weapon again because that allows you to get different resources. You got to try out different parts of the Pact of Punishment because it can influence on how you can get these resources, which then improve your weapons, improve the gameplay. Like it all feeds into it's so well. But I know there were definitely moments that early on in the game where I was just like, man, darkness again. Like, okay, like I guess, like it did not like from after I beat the game. Like I feel like most of my permanent upgrades were maxed out. Before I even beat the game. So by the time I got there, it's like, oh, okay, now we can finally have it. And the faded list of minor prophecies, I think, plays into that economy as well, where you have these achievements you can get, which give you the resources. And back to the Mirror of Darkness, I found out there's this, one of the prophecies is that if you clear a run with every single one of those those upgrades, those character modifications. And the thing is, up to that point, I've pretty much been playing purely on the purple side. And so it's like, oh, I just switch all these over to green, clear a run. There's 8 Titan blood. All right.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so all the different resources, the Wretched Broker, the Pact of Punishment, the List of Minor Prophecies, how all that system feeds each other, I just think it's genius.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think it's fantastic.
Brilliant.
And I think so much of that, like Zach said, is because it's just it must have been ludicrously well tested. Like, the balance is incredible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was in early access for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yes. The thing is, you've got so many. You've got with the early access thing, you've got players to be your play testers in a way.
Yeah.
And I know they do a lot of internal testing too. Like everybody at Supergiant is like required to play the current build of the game every week for a certain number of hours. And,
that's interesting.
It's really interesting stuff. Yeah. You can see all that in the No Clip series. But
cool.
like when you have your target audience is the one playtesting your game, in droves, you have so many people doing it. I imagine that's one of the reasons it's so balanced and polished and stuff. That's such an interesting thought.
Yeah, they did a really good job balancing this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it could have, like you said, so many systems, so many moving parts, so many, what could seem like, chaos at first glance. It could have easily become unbalanced, but, for some reason it works out. Even, we talked about sometimes becoming overpowered on the run. I think because there's that random element that you don't choose to become overpowered, it's like a fun surprise. It's like, this is actually easy. I can clear through this boss in a matter of minutes. It's.
Oh man, when I beat Asterius and Theseus in under a minute, I was like, yeah, and I've never done it since.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I remember. It is kind of a topic, kind of fun. I didn't really care for Aphrodite's boons for most of my experience, and then one time I got her call, and it like took down half of Hades' health, and I was like, oh, okay, like we're
all right.
Come and start paying attention to Aphrodite from now on.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything more I want to say about that. It wasn't as much of a question. We're just kind of, this is a really awesome aspect of the game I wanted to make sure we talked about.
It is awesome.
And I think we've had a great discussion. There's so much more we could talk about with Hades. The art direction, the music, the voice acting, the writing. If you haven't played the game, those of you listening, check it out. We recommend it.
It's a good one.
Okay, well, thank you for that discussion. And now, real quick, we're going to, since the name of our podcast is Games by Design, and as we talked about earlier, the focus of this podcast is to just distill those design principles, find out what makes a good game. We're going to talk about what Zach has been doing, has been thinking about, these different principles of game design and kind of collecting what we've been talking about in past episodes. And we want to start integrating that together into this, kind of standard we have to look at these games and see if there's anything that we need to change in it and how we look at game design. So Zach, if you want to talk a little bit about that and what you want to do with that.
You bet. So I've gone through our recent episodes and I've and I've written down a handful, not everything that we've ever talked about, but a handful of game design principles that we've kind of settled on as a group. And kind of like you were just saying, Aaron, like I think that the goal here is not to measure the game against these principles, but to measure these principles against the games that we're playing and see if we actually do believe these things that we've come up with. So I'm just going to go down this list, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask whether you felt like this principle was played out in this game in this way, that we've come up with before, or if it wasn't there, and then if it is or isn't there, do we feel like is it missing, or was its inclusion actually a problem, or something like that? And then what we'll do is maybe adjust our principles a little bit and make it more nuanced and more mature understanding of these principles for our own benefit. So we've already kind of touched on this one a little bit, but Hades. We talk about Hades. We talk about having a focused experience when you're playing a video game, and it's not trying to be everything, you know. So we've already talked about this a little bit, but just focused experience. Did we feel like Hades is a focused experience that makes sense and doesn't have a bunch of random stuff on it? I mean, I don't like the fishing.
Yeah,
but other than that,
yeah. And I'm gonna get back to that. I'm taking notes. We're gonna revisit that. I want to talk about that. But I think in general, I'm having a hard time saying what the experience is, like pinpointing, like, and trying to like, if I was gonna say the experience of Hades is blah 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 blah, and so. I'm kind of a hard time figuring what feeds into that.
I guess I see what you're saying.
I think at first glance, you look at a game like Hades and it seems kind of all over the place. Where it's like you have this dungeon crawler roguelike action game, but then you also kind of have this friendship, almost dating simulator thing going on, and then you got this fishing thing going on, and then you've got this, life sim improve your house by upgrades and furniture and stuff, and it all kind of seems disparate. But I think from what we talked about, everything feeds into the next thing, and so somehow it fits together. It's
I think
I'd say it becomes focused as you play.
Yeah, I don't know that I can point to, like, where it's all going, but like you said, Aaron, it feeds to each other. Everything does feed into the next thing. Nothing stands out. Nothing, like, sits apart from the rest of the experience. So while I can't say Hades is a game about, I can say, well, this element feeds into this element, feeds into this element. Nothing butts heads, really. And so, like, they all contribute to each other's experience, like all of the systems interact really well.
Yeah.
And so I do like that.
Cool. Yeah. I agree. Everything does fit really, really well together. Here's what I think. If I may adduce my own, what I think the experience of this game is.
Adduce it.
It's kind of like what we were talking about before. I think that in my mind, the experience of Hades is to take on the role of Zagreus and on his journey to accomplish, getting out of Hades. And I think that everything, in my mind, everything fits in the game because everything contributes to being Zagreus on his quest to do that.
Okay, yeah.
So like, so obviously fighting his way out of Hades is part of his quest to do that. But also when you come back home and you deal with stuff, like you're Zagreus in repose, or Zagreus in rest from the thing.
Yeah.
And you still have, Zagreus still has a bedroom, and Zagreus still has a, like people to talk to and things like that. All of that contributes to, so everything that you do back at the place, or even, back in either out in the field or in the house, like I feel like all of it is about Zagreus dealing with Zagreus's problems while Zagreus is working on this quest that he's doing.
I agree with you, and I think everything does feed into that, and I like that a lot.
Cool. Okay, well, so and we've already talked about how we feel like that's a good thing for this game, right? Like, we don't feel like, hey, this game should be less focused or something. I don't know. Do we feel like this game should be less focused?
No.
Again, I think it's remarkable with everything going on how focused it works out to be.
That's amazing.
I think it works in its favor.
Good. Well, in that case, I guess we'll keep that principle that we like a game with a focused experience.
Yeah.
And we'll wait to see if we're proven wrong later on.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is choice and consequence. We've mentioned before we like being able to make choices in a game. and we like living with realistic and natural consequences of our choices.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we have choices and do we have consequences in this game? Yeah.
Yeah. If I could just, throw a little anecdote about a consequence I experienced in a run of Hades one time. So in the game, you have different boons, and then eventually you unlock boons from chaos, which are kind of a positive and a negative effect, right? And,
yeah, they're fascinating.
So it's like, for 3 rooms, you're going to have this negative effect, and then you have, an attack up boost or whatever. So I got this chaos boon in Tartarus, and I wasn't really paying attention how far along in Tartarus I was. And the boon was, for the next 3 rooms, your movement speed will be drastically lowered. And then, I don't even remember what it was. Maybe an attack. I didn't get to find out. Anyway. Turns out 2 rooms later is the boss.
Oh, no.
And so, I'm fighting the Furies, and, their attacks kind of gets a bit bullet hell, where there's just a lot of stuff flying at you, and I'm moving super slow, and I didn't finish the run. I died.
Tartarus.
So that was a choice of the risk of take this chaos boon and I can get this upgrade, but then the consequence was, because I wasn't paying attention to how soon the boss was going to be coming up, I got in a position where I couldn't. I lost. And by the way, I had, probably beaten Hades about 16 times at this point, so to lose in Tartarus was really humbling.
Yeah. I think it holds. I think it kind of feeds into what we were talking about, where like it accepts everything that you do and lets it be canon. Like it and maybe that's not quite the same. I don't know, every one of your choices has consequences. Every one of your choices gets to play out.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And like you don't drastically change the course of the narrative. The story's still going in the same direction. You don't have control over everything. But I don't need control over everything. Like I don't need to play Zagreus the serial killer. I want to play Zagreus the son of Hades. I don't need to like be able to kill everybody in the house of Hades, because like he said, it's about being Zagreus. And so I recognize that some things are just by virtue of it, or by its nature of being this kind of a game, just kind of off the table. I know that that's not gonna happen,
right? Yeah. Because it's a game about being Zagreus, and Zagreus doesn't do something.
Yeah, and the same thing is like, And there are games about being a person who has a less defined identity.
Yeah.
But when you're playing something like Zagreus or like Geralt or like, these characters,
or
Joel, these are people with defined characteristics.
Yeah.
So I like the amount of agency that it gives me, and I do appreciate that my decisions are respected. So I feel like the principle holds up. And I think
you still like having choices.
I still like having choices and consequences. I guess is a really long way of saying that. I apologize.
Well, I think we've talked about the past too, and I think this is reflected in Hades, because in a lot of way of Hades, you're not always given a lot of choices, or like I said, things are kind of randomly generated at times, or you're limited in what you can do. You just have to make do. With what's given to you. I think we've talked about, when talking about player agency, that it's not just about having the freedom to do whatever you want, but that you can respond to your environment, and your environment responds back to you.
Yeah.
I think is really where that choice and consequence lies.
Yeah, I agree. So I think the principle holds up. I think Hades is a wonderful example of that principle.
Yeah. And I mean, we're kind of developing a little more nuance with this principle too.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, like Aaron just said, it's not about being able to do literally anything in game, but being able to make the choices that make sense for the experience of the game that you're playing, and then also having a natural feedback from the environment and from the other characters.
Yeah.
kind of along that same thing, we like being given the opportunity to fail and to sometimes feel negative emotions. Is that present in this game, and do we like that it's in this game, or do we feel like there's more to it than just that?
Oh, no negative emotions in this game.
I think it holds up. I still like that, and I think that it's present in Hades. That's my short answer. I started with the short answer this time. Maybe I'll get to the long answer.
I mean, like you're sent back regularly. Like, whoop, you screwed up, you're back, and then you picked a bad boon, you did a bad thing, you moved the wrong way.
Mm-hmm. There can be a lot of rage, with certain moments in this game, or frustration. But I like Zacharias reflects that. You die, you get back, and he's like, "Oh, like I'm gonna get that Minotaur."
We're gonna hate that guy. Yeah.
He comes back, he's like, "Oh, Father, one of these days," and so it's fun.
Yeah. And it lets you fail, and it makes you go all the way back to the beginning and deal with it again.
Mm-hmm. And while I don't necessarily spend a lot of time reflecting on my moral mistakes, I don't think that's the point of this game.
Right, yeah.
And so
this game isn't The Witcher.
Yeah.
Where it is, oh, did I do the right thing? It's like, no, did I? Because it's more strategic decision making and stuff like that.
What could I have done better? Yeah, I mean, you're still reflecting. It's just a different kind.
Yeah, it's like, oh, what could I have done better tactically? Yeah. Rather than what could I have done better ethically?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks. Mm-hmm. We've already talked about this one a little bit too, but we like it when you only get as much information as you ask for. Is something that we've said before in games, about systems, about lore, about stuff. Mm-hmm. So, what do you guys think? Is that here, and do we like the way that this principle is? Or is there more to it than that we may have learned through our playing of Hades?
I'm a little confused by the phrasing of we only want what we ask for information in a game.
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of that sentence. What did you say?
Oh, just confused by the phrasing.
Yeah, just a little. You said the principle is regarding information in game that we only get as much as we ask for. I just feel like, I don't know, maybe again, this game with kind of its random stuff, you don't really ask for much in the game, or as a player, it does kind of throw things at you, but in a way that you're able to handle it. I don't think if it was just pick and choose what information you want to receive, it wouldn't be as effective.
Mm-hmm. I think kind of where I look at this principle being, and maybe wording needs to be changed or something, but kind of
that's the point of this.
Yeah, the thought being that it doesn't require you to interact with everything at once. It doesn't require you to interact with everything. It only requires you to interact with as much as you want to. So, because everything is there. Hades has so much, but it doesn't force you to learn everything. It doesn't force you into the codex. It doesn't force you to learn all of the boons and stuff like that. It asks you what is immediately relevant and what you actually it'll throw up a pick your boon, and it'll give you the boons options, and then it gets out of your face, and so I don't know. Maybe the principle is more about what I said that I can't remember.
You said something along the lines of we like it when games don't force you to do it a certain way, or
they don't require you to interact with all of the
content.
If you're not ready for it,
all of the information, all of the systems, because the codex doesn't pop up and say read this entry.
Yeah,
read this entry right now. It's you just go there and read it if you want to.
Yeah,
which is kind of a normal thing for video games. That's really not all that revolutionary. But there are games that require you to make use of mechanics sometimes. Actually, that's pretty normal. Then you have a lot of puzzle solving games or whatever where it's or even in The Last of Us, where it's here's you have to move this box over here so that you can climb up on the box and pick it up, and and I don't know, maybe I think I feel like there's a lot to kind of to dig into on this one, because I don't know that there's anything necessarily wrong with providing information that the player doesn't go looking for, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, and then if our solution to that is to say, well, instead of that, it's that we don't like being forced to do things to engage with. We don't like being forced to. How do we?
I think we could just pin that one for re-examination.
I think that's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
And,
Let's pin that one for now.
Bring it up.
Yeah.
In our continuing discussion.
Well, good. This is working.
Yeah, it's working. Now we gotta revisit that one.
Good.
That was the whole point of this segment, and that's actually the last one. So that's all that we got in this for this time, and we'll bring up more and we'll talk about more in the future. But that's it for now.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thanks for doing that, Zach.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And again, that's just we talked about focus of the game. We wanted to focus our podcast to be about design and what really makes these games work and what doesn't. So we're gonna keep trying to implement that. But anyway, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks again for listening to Games by Design. Next time we'll be back into our regular rotations with our topics as we continue on our quest to distill principles of game design and what makes a good game. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.